I'm going to turn this around, okay? I'm turning this around, okay?
I'm not ready for a podcast yet.
I create an environment where they are comfortable coming to us.
Right.
I have the lowest rate of patients going to the emergency room. Right now, I have AI helping me, believe it or not,
I know.
with calling all the patients. You need your colonoscopy, your mammogram, your physical, all of it. When I was in Albany, this is what I was saying. Like, you support me, I can tell you.
You convinced them of this.
Well, it's government. I got down on my knees and I prayed. And I prayed for God to give me the strength to forgive him. The past does not define who you are today.
Absolutely not.
And taking ownership of the responsibilities that the results that you are now having in your life are the results that you are creating. And I know that is tough to accept because you're driving.
Welcome to Bear Wires. I'm your host, Brian Heyman. If you've watched Bear Wires before or listened to Bear Wires, you know we cover a lot of material. But tonight, we'll be covering some very sensitive material. Child sexual abuse, domestic violence, and supplying minors with alcohol. If these are things that upset you, you may want to just read the transcript or skip this podcast altogether. This evening, we'll be speaking to Maria Trusa, an entrepreneur, executive, author, and survivor. Maria's life's been nothing short of remarkable. Maria was born in the Dominican Republic and has immigrated to the United States at a young age, and from humble beginnings became the CEO of Formé Health Center in White Plains. Maria has spent decades changing the health system in Westchester and serving the underserved communities. This is a story about leadership, resilience, and turning adversity into opportunity. Welcome to Bear Wires.
Brian, thank you so much for having me here, giving me a space to be able to continue creating the impact that I'm clear that I was born to make.
It's a calling, I'm sure.
Yes, it is.
So I want to go back to the beginning where you were in Dominican Republic as a child, right?
Yeah.
And what did you go through? Did the abuse happen back in Dominican Republic?
Yes.
As a child?
So prior to the incident that marked my life forever, and will continue, I think, until the day I die, because there are traumas in your life that you learn to live with. And I have not just learned to live with mine, I've learned to actually use it as a superpower. And we'll talk more about the superpower that I gain from an experience that most people would not recover from. So I was born and raised in a very small town called Licey al Medio, and I was there with my mom and my dad. I have four brothers, so I was the only girl.
Okay.
And my mom had to come to the United States with my two older brothers first, because unfortunately my dad was an alcoholic.
Okay.
And my father was a good man that lost his soul at some point, and I'm not sure what happened to my father, and I'll tell you more about, I never really got to speak with him after the incident. But my mom came to the United States, and for me, that was the first traumatic experience.
Right.
I'm a little girl, 8 years old, and my mom is, out of the blue, I have a family. We had nothing. We were very, very poor. By the time I left, my mom left. So 8 years from when I was born, we were kicked out of most of the houses that we were living because my dad would not know in the Dominican Republic.
So you felt vulnerable.
My father would not pay the rent. So my mom had to come to the United States because she had 5 kids to support. And unfortunately, my father was not absent. He was absent. So She came, and I went to a cousin's house. My brother, Billy, that was 2 years older than me, so he was 10. He went to a friend's house, and my little brother, that was 3 years old, stayed with my father's, with our grandparents. So out of the blue, one day, we are all just separate.
Right, all different places.
That was horrific for me. And I thought that.
How old were you at this point?
At 8.
Wow.
So then for a year, we were separated, and I begged my mom and my brothers to put us together. I really was, I was a depressed 8-year-old child.
Right.
So we get together, my mom and my brothers were able to get a house, and we get a lady, her name is Paula, she's still in my life, she's 75, and she's the...
Is she in the United States?
She's in the Dominican Republic. I wish I could have her here, but she's not able to come. Because of the immigration status. So Paula comes, and now I feel like we are now together. We are happy that my little brother, that's now 4, and my brother Billy, we were all together. And they said to my father, the only thing you have to do is bring them food. They will support everything else. And I can tell you there was that Christmas, we had grapes and bread because my father did not show up. But my father showed up one day, and as I'm starting to tell you the story, I always say how the body keeps the score. My body feels it, like my heart rate right now
goes up.
My body feels heat, and it's something real, because there's a little girl that was really hurt inside. And it's important to understand that, because we get disconnected from our bodies. But for me, being connected to my body has actually become a very powerful tool that I utilize. So I recognize the feeling that I'm having, and I'm telling you because it allows me to tell the story in a more peaceful way. So my father came in the middle of the night, and he came with his friend who was a witchcraft man, brujo. He was a brujo in the Dominican Republic, in the small town. And they were taking my little brother, 4 years old, in the middle of the night. They took him from his bed. And as they were leaving, I heard, and I got up, and I took my little brother from him and said...
Where were they taking him?
I'll tell you in a minute.
Okay.
So I stopped them from taking my little brother, and my father said, then you go. Then you have to go. And I did. And my father took me to where this man did witchcraft, and he left me there. He left me there.
You felt abandoned at that time.
I was so afraid. I never thought I was going to make it alive, because as soon as he took me into this room, he told me that if I said anything of what was going to happen that night, I will be killed, and so would my family.
Wow.
That's how it started.
That's the threat.
So then he proceeded to give me a bottle of whiskey, and I had to swallow it nonstop. 9 years old by then.
Wow.
9. I could have died just from the whiskey, because my body, my little body,
absolutely,
I could have been intoxicated with the whiskey. The whiskey became a gift.
An escape.
Because what proceeded to happen after that, if I would have been able to be conscious completely, I will not be here sitting talking to you.
You would have never gotten over it.
No. And I'll tell you why. Because this man took me to a motel, and he brutally me. He me to the point that until he got exhausted and he was done with my little body.
I have to ask you a question. Did your father absolutely know what was going on here?
We're going to get there.
All right.
So I woke up in the morning, and I couldn't walk. I could not walk. I was My little body was naked, and I was bleeding. I had no clue what happened to me. But when I went to the bathroom and I locked myself in the bathroom and I went on the floor, and I'm like, oh my God, like I was broken. I was physically and emotionally broken that day. And for me, coming out of the bathroom, I was so afraid because now I was feeling everything.
Right.
And I'm like, what is he going to do to me now?
Now you're starting to come around after the whiskey and everything, and you're standing there extremely vulnerable, and you know you're vulnerable. So you come out of the bathroom, what happens?
Ironically, he was exhausted, so he took me back to his house. In the meantime, my uncle wakes up. It's so crazy because I'm telling you the story and I'm feeling, I actually feel the pain in my right ovary. I had to have surgery in my right ovary because I was going to lose the ovary because it got twisted in the fallopian tubes.
Wow.
And this is how powerful your body is. This is how, there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. This book talks about exactly what I'm feeling right now. And we don't realize it, because I would say, what the heck is this? I know what the heck is this.
Right.
I felt this pain when I was 9, and I'm 61.
And you're still feeling it.
And it still comes out when I talk about this story.
That damage was done, and it was permanent to the body.
There was permanent damage to the soul. But I can tell you that that day, and I have my book, so I say no more. The details, all of it is in this book. The going from the ashes like the phoenix and building myself to where I am today, because the story, and we'll go back, and give you more details, but I am unstoppable. I am a woman.
I feel that. I feel that. There's a certain amount of power that comes when you release and face the things that bother you the most. Most people would have folded their tent, crawled up in a ball, and said, I'm a victim. I can't do anything else, and rightfully so. It's something that trauma that they would never get over. But there's something to be said about facing it, addressing it, because it takes the power away from it.
Yeah.
Okay? And it gives the power back to you. And that comes, I deal with a lot of people with addictions and very similar stuff. And as you might have seen some of the podcasts that these people went through trauma, with their parents and stuff. But the ability to sit down and say, okay, yes, this happened to me. I'm addressing it. And I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to let it out. And in letting it out, you take the power away from it. Instead of, what people do is they get shy, they get quiet, they feel like they made the mistake, they feel like they're the ones at fault, they feel like, okay, I can't talk about this. And that power of the other person stays over them for a long, long time. You are able to come to terms with it, and I think, for the most part, come out and talk about it, which releases the power that you have over it. Okay, so when people can talk about those things, and this is traumatic. I mean, I can't even fathom it. It makes me almost sick right here to talk about it. But the ability to understand it, talk about it, you release the power of somebody else over you. You have the power now.
I have the power now. But it's been a journey.
I imagine it has.
It's been a long journey. And that's what I want to do for people now. And this is the reason I'm sitting here, because I got to tell you that up to six years ago, nobody knew my story. I created a life here, and I pretended that story that I mentioned to you did not exist.
When you came here, you pretended that the story didn't exist.
The doors of, and I talk about it in my book, that the doors of the JF Kennedy Airport opened. I never seen doors open. I mean, you're talking many years ago.
Right.
I was 15 when I came here. So for the first time, I see those doors open, and I said, I'm going to make it here. I changed my name.
Wow.
My name, my mom, Dominican mothers love a lot of names.
Okay.
So
yes.
my name is
I know that.
Maria Magdalena Jacqueline. But in the Dominican Republic, for whatever reason, they picked Jackie. So they call me Jackie. So the little girl that went through that trauma was Jackie. When I got here, I changed my name to Maria.
Was that the point that you took power over this? What was the point that you said that you cannot let this destroy you? Okay, yeah. Because most people would have been destroyed by this.
Yeah.
And it's almost impossible to see you at such a high level after going through this. But at what point did you say to yourself, this will not rule me for the rest of my life? That's really what I want to know, because that's what people need to do. They need to get to that point to say, okay, it happened, things happen, and a lot of kids are traumatized. Not in this sense, but a lot of things happen to young kids.
Everybody has.
Right, and people need to understand that, yes, there is a point that you were traumatized, but either you're going to let that trauma rule you or you're going to rule it, one or the other. And to talk about it is the first step to ruling it. So at what point did you say to yourself, I'm not going to let this hold me back?
My mom did not know how to deal. Nobody knew how to deal with me after that happened. So I was like a broken little girl that they did not know how to fix. So what they did was, like, I didn't get a hug. I did not get a hug. But I can tell you one thing that my mom did, and I never thought that this would turn to be a positive and a superpower of mine. But my mom, so at the age of 9, after I had the surgery, I was on the floor and I wanted to die. I wanted to die. So I would cry days and days. And one day my mom kicked me. She kicked me. She went, get up. Enough. Enough. I don't want to hear you crying anymore. That's it. And that was the last day I cried.
Wow. I would have never expected that.
Last day I cried. And I resented my mom for that. And I did a lot of work, and I talk about, there's a beautiful chapter. My mom died and she was my queen and I was her princess. And I can tell you that we repair that relationship because of the healing that I did. It's collective healing. When you heal your soul, you connect to your light, you're actually not just healing your soul, you are connecting and healing past generation and future generation. And I do this work because I actually do healing work. I have it in my home, and we'll get there. But my mom did me a favor. So I stopped crying. And I was fully disconnected from my body. And if you wanted to beat me up, you could beat me up, but I'm going to get up. I got up. I didn't cry. I would get up. I was married at the age of 17 to an abusive, unfortunately, another dark soul Dominican man that also raped me. Because it is when you don't want to have sex with your husband, even if you marry, then when you're forced to, you then are being raped again. So I lasted 10 years with this man.
Was it in this country?
Yes.
Okay.
And he reminded me, he found out what happened to me, and he reminded me of that constantly.
That was a power he thought he had over you.
He unfortunately is, I'm friends with him. He's in my book. I don't think he's read my book, because if he read it, he would not be my friend. But he's my friend, and I'm forgiving everybody. So I'm going to go there, because this is, for me, forgiveness is the key. So the way that I learned to forgive, my biggest catalyst, because we all have a catalyst. It's just sometimes we miss the catalyst. But for me, my biggest catalyst was my firstborn. When Franco, who's 41 now, was born, that little kid, I saw him.
Is this just from your husband?
Yeah, the one that I
Right.
got married at the age
Right.
of 17. So I got two gifts. I got my son Franco and Jeffrey from him. But I didn't know that it was a gift then because I was not equipped to be a mom.
At 17, it's tough to be.
Not just that, like with the trauma that I carry,
Right.
that I thought I didn't carry, because this is unfortunately what happens to trauma. You think you bury it, but it's not buried. It's in you. So when my son was born and it was a boy, I thought it was a girl. And when I saw that he was a boy, I disconnected immediately.
Wow.
Disconnected. I had a hard time cleaning him.
Wow.
And I'm like, what the heck is wrong with me? I started questioning what's wrong with me. And my son was disconnected immediately. And that kid would cry every night. That kid was the most difficult child, but it was because he had felt this connection. And one night, I couldn't take it anymore. And I took this kid because as a Dominican wife, you cook, you clean, you work, you do everything. So the husband goes to sleep and then you take care of the baby too. So you don't sleep and you do everything that you need to do. So
That's the culture.
that's the culture. It's changing, but it's going to take a long time to change that. That's why I don't even date Dominican men.
Hey, you didn't have to say that. I kind of knew that off the bat.
No way. So I took my child because I couldn't take it anymore, and I threw him in the bed. And my son fell on the floor, 3 months old. And I say that 6 years ago, nobody knew that because I kept that a secret. And I said, if I'm going to tell my story, because I realized that there's a silent pandemic of sexual abuse of children, I also need to tell the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we tend to omit the ugly. But we all have ugly. We all are capable. In
Absolutely.
trauma, we all have capabilities that we cannot imagine. And that's why it's important to really get curious. You started with curiosity. I love that. This is a place of curiosity. Curiosity depletes judgment. And what it does is then it allows you to go and start questioning.
But what moved you? Because it's such a unique experience for someone to say to themselves, to really reach down in themselves and say, listen, these are things that happened to me. These are things that I did. And I need to release those. I need to release them out here because I have them in there and they've captured me and they control me because they control my behavior. They control my relationships. They control how I act, what I say, and what I do. How do I release that? And when did you say to yourself, I need to release this so I can be healed?
Yeah, so you asked me about my father. I never spoke with my father again.
I'm surprised he's not in jail.
He went to jail one day.
And what about the guy who actually
3 months, and I needed to testify, and a psychologist said I wasn't in any shape to testify about anything. So he went free.
Oh my God.
And my father is, I actually could tell you here that I love my father.
Did he ever take responsibility for this?
My father, I got a phone call from my uncle when my son was a year old. And so my uncle called me and said, your father is dying. My father had a brain tumor. He could not speak. So my father wrote his last request was that my uncle will call me and ask me for forgiveness.
Wow. And I suppose you did.
Not at the moment.
Okay.
I was actually quite angry because I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you now put me in a position where if I don't forgive you, this is me thinking, 21. It's like you're not gonna go to God, because in my mind, I'm a woman of God, and I'm like, and if I say that I forgive you, then God knows, because He knows everything.
Right.
So I'm having this conversation, and I can tell you that I got down on my knees and I prayed. And I prayed for God to give me the strength to forgive him.
And did He?
And I did.
Good.
I did. And I can tell you that my uncle called me a few minutes later, and he said, my father cried and he took his last breath.
Wow. It's weird that you say that story, because I've been there too for other reasons. But until you give yourself and say to yourself, okay, I am not strong enough to carry this, please give me help. You just don't know where the help's coming from, but it will come if you ask for it.
Yes.
And in that, I'm a man of faith. So in that sense, you went to the right person, or the right God.
He's been with me, and you know what? I questioned him. For many years, I questioned him.
I'm sure you did.
I was very angry at him. I'm like, so, the forgiveness now has become the way that I live. I forgive to live.
Right.
I forgive to live.
Because if you don't, you really hurt yourself.
Yeah.
I found that as soon as I forgive, there's a freedom that comes with that.
Oh.
And there's a relief that comes with that, because you're not carrying it around anymore. And, people hold grudges, forever. I grew up in a big family too. And, it's a very competitive atmosphere where I grew up. But the idea is that, you have to say to yourself, listen, it didn't kill me. I'm here. I have to forgive because Jesus forgave. And, if He could do it, I need to do it, and it just releases your ability to live. All right.
It's so hard to do.
It is hard to do.
And I'll tell you, because I do this healing work, and what I find is that there's a meditation that we do, and it's amazing. I mean, the release with this meditation is crazy, because we take you into the castle of your soul. And when we take you down into the dungeon of your soul, you go down in the meditation to the dungeon, and then we ask you to see who is in jail in the dungeon of your soul. Who is? And you visualize that. And then we ask you, who else is in there? Who else? Because they're not alone. Who else? You.
That's right.
You are in the dungeon of your soul, and they have become the master of your life.
Because you haven't released that.
Yeah. And there is an attachment that you get, so we become victims, right?
Right.
And to move from victim to creator, it's a process, it's choices and choices. Those little tiny choices that you do every single day that creates the massive results. It is a choice today where I choose. One of the exercises that I did, because I didn't have the money to go to therapy.
Right.
So when I did that for my son, one thing I did, I would go to the library and I sat with a cup of tea and I read every book you can imagine on how do I help myself? And what I did, I started seeing and documenting, very simple. You get a journal and you document as you do some practice, and you do a small step today, another small step the next day. And you say, I went from angry, resentful, ugly, hated myself. I would put 4 or 5 different words.
Right.
And as I started doing this work, I saw my own transformation. I have the books, these daily books that I ended up documenting my transformation.
Wow.
And it's a journey, but it's a journey that is worth doing. Because when you make a choice every morning and you decide, I'm going to forgive to live, I am the master of my life.
Right.
You are the master. And what happened to you should have never happened to you.
Right.
But what is happening to you now is the results of the choices you're making. So right now, you cannot blame anybody. I cannot blame my father for anything.
It's funny you say that, because I'm a true Alfred Adler. You ever hear of Alfred Adler? Alfred Adler is a psychologist in the 1860s, around the Freudian area and Jung area. But his belief was Freudian was wrong, Jung was wrong. But what he believed is that you have the power. There's things that happen to everybody, and you can either dwell on them and let them control your life, but you have a choice right now, today, the present day, to say, it happened to me. I've recognized it. It happened to me, but how is it affecting me today? It doesn't need to affect me today. I am going to overcome that, and I'm going to make the right choices going forward. Adlerian psychology. If you have a chance, you'll want to look at it.
I love reading books.
And it's a great analogy about, and I use it when I talk to people in recovery. I say, listen, matter of fact, when I had Corey here, he sat here and I sat there, and he said to me before we started, he goes, you've been with me for 6 years. We've done a lot of things together. He goes, you never asked me about my past. And I basically said to him, I believe in that psychology. So I basically said to him, I said, there was nothing I could do about your past. And I said, by the way, there's nothing there's nothing you could do about your past.
I love it.
I said, this is today, and we're going to move forward.
I love it.
And that's the only thing you can do. If people can come to terms with that and understand that what happened, happened. There's nothing you're going to do to change that.
Yeah.
Okay? Today is the day that you make decisions, and that will affect what happens to you in the future. That's what it's really about. Because we all go through things. We've all been through things. I've been on my knees. But your choices for the next day and the next day after that are going to determine what your path is. So these guys I deal with, the first thing they'd say to me sometimes is, well, it was really tough. And I said, do you want to compare stories? I said, I'll compare stories all day long. I said, but that's not what's doing that to you. Right now, you have a choice to do this or this. You can go back to your old ways and go backwards, or you can step forward. You make that choice, all right? So I talk about it in that form to them, so they understand that I'm not here to say I can't fix what happened to you, but what I can help you every step going forward, and that's the most important thing.
That is so powerful. You are empowering them with those words, because you are right. The past does not define who you are today.
Absolutely not.
And taking ownership of the responsibilities, that the results that you are now having in your life are the results that you are creating. And I know that is tough to accept, because you're driving.
Hey, let me ask you something. Why are you still renting your electricity from a utility company every single month? You're watching your bills go up. You have no control over the rates, and every year it just gets worse. Last year, for the same time period during the winter, I paid $825. This year, I paid over $1,200. Something's got to change. That's why I want to tell you about a local company in the tri-state area called On-Site Energy. These guys aren't salespeople. They're operators. They actually know how to design a system that makes financial sense for your house. With On-Site Energy, you're not just putting panels on the roof. You're locking in the cost of power. Now, I've seen a lot of companies in this space, and I had my doubts about solar energy. But as my bills went up, I figured I'd give it a look. Most companies I talked to overcomplicated it, but with On-Site, they kept it simple and tells you straight if it works for you. At least get the numbers. Reach out to On-Site for a free consultation. No pressure, just clarity. Give it a shot. Start to control the cost of your energy. Click the link below in the show description and get 6 months free. But
so it's a choice.
They want to blame it on something else because it's easier.
It's easier.
Okay, but the truth of the matter is Everything you do from today and every day forward is a choice that you've made, okay? Nothing that happened in the past can change those choices, okay? So it's up to you to make the right choices going
100%.
forward. So these are the conversations that I have with these guys, and you were able to do it when a lot of people aren't. What I want to ask you about it, how prevalent is this? Is this an epidemic that we're just ignoring?
It is a pandemic. It is a silent pandemic.
God.
What I discovered, so writing my book, I was in my home in Vermont with 10 women in the jacuzzi. The name came out of the jacuzzi story. So they're Latinas that I actually, like you see people, you want it. I have an amazing life. I've been able to create beyond the dreams, and I continue to create beyond my imagination. So I'm a limitless woman, and I want to empower other people to find their limitless within themselves. So I took these women to my home in Vermont, and I was writing my book. And they asked me, what is my book about? And I shared with them that night. And 8 out of the 10 were sexually abused.
Get out of here.
8. It is a silent pandemic, and it's a very complex pandemic because 97% of the abuse happens at home.
People they know.
The monster is in the house. The monster has been created by other monsters, so it feeds itself.
So they were abused.
They were abused, and they become abuser.
So it's an epidemic of generations.
It's generations and generations. And the sad thing, I'm an expert on this now because for 6 years, I have a YouTube talk show that I interviewed 30 individuals that were never told their story, and they were sexually abused by father, uncles, men and women. And you can find it on YouTube. Yo Digo No Más. I say no more.
I say no more. Right.
And what I found, because I've been doing, I actually pay someone to do research on this for 6 months. So I understood and went into how prevalent is it. Like, I know in my country, in the Dominican Republic, it's extremely prevalent. And I went there to do a media tour talking about the silent pandemic of sexual abuse of children. And I couldn't even have an 800 number that I could recommend people to call because nobody wants to talk about this.
You're kidding me.
I had to work with an organization called RAIN that is here in the United States. I work with them. And RAIN, 2 N's at the end, like RAIN, 2 N's, they actually helped me create, in Spanish, they created a link to the people when I was in the Dominican Republic that I could say, go into the website and you can find information of how to help, how to identify, how to make sure that we start breaking the social norms that feed the pandemic. So as Latinos, and it's not just the Latino, there's no discrimination here.
Right.
This is a silent pandemic. So I can tell you that according to RAIN, only 30% of the abuse gets reported. 30%.
Wow.
Most people die with the story with them. And you know what happened? That abuser is abusing many people in the family, many children, because no one talks.
Right, because the opportunity's there.
When they talk, they're not believed.
Wow.
I had a woman, I go to speak, I do a lot of speaking engagements, and I went to speak in front of senior citizens. And when I told them, I was talking about my book and the story, and this 85-year-old woman came to me, and that one hurt me. 85, and she was in so much pain.
And she never talked about it?
It looked in her face, and she came to me and said, for the first time, I'm going to tell you.
Wow.
I was abused by my father.
How can we as a society, the epidemic, the pandemic that you mentioned, and it goes on all over. How as a society can we start to address this, in its monstrous form? I mean, how do we, I never experienced anything like that. I was never really with somebody that I knew experienced. Now that you mention it, I probably was with people that actually experienced what they would have never told me. So how do we expose this? How do we get this in the light? How do we take the darkness from this and put this in the light? Put this in front of people so it's addressing it.
I am trying to do that. And I can tell you for the past 6 years, you know how much money I invested in my nonprofit organization, which is called I Say No More, Yo Digo No Más? $1.3 million of my money. And I have a hard time getting people to come out. The problem is I have a hard time getting people to donate, because if they donate, they're telling that they think, so a lot of survivors, don't even like my post, because if they like my post, they're talking, and I heard this from the people. Yeah, that's true. Because they are telling that they are abused.
Wow.
So what I confronted with my movement, I actually had to put it on hold because I was getting consumed. I have 5 businesses. In the movement, I was being consumed by the movement because my passion, as you could feel,
right.
I went crazy. I went obsessed because I'm like, how is it that we don't talk about this?
That's what I'm trying to understand.
I've been on Channel 41, CNN Español. I've been on Channel 4, Channel 5. I went and did media tours in different countries. I went to Mexico. But you know what I've confronted everywhere? People are afraid to speak. People are afraid to like. People are afraid to donate. I have a hard time getting people to donate.
Okay, so they're afraid. Let's talk about this. What are they actually afraid of?
Because it's someone from the family.
Okay.
I have people that would come to me.
So most of this, what you're telling me is that, and you know, the statistics bear this out too, is that this sexual abuse comes from somebody you probably know or very close to.
Father, uncle, cousin, la vecina, the
so
neighbor.
It's not the boogeyman coming from outside.
No, 97% of the abuse is someone you love.
Oh my God.
And then the dynamic is, which makes it really difficult, is that, so you're my mother, and I go to you and I tell you that I'm 10 years old and I'm being abused by dad.
Right.
You know what the mom says? How could it be? Impossible. Most impossible.
Do they not believe it, or do they just tend to?
They don't want to believe it,
or do they tend to ignore it because it would cause a bigger problem? Do they actually not believe you?
You train your mind to believe that the little girl made a mistake.
Wow.
I heard. Do you know that I actually had to go back to therapy because what I realized is I was going to get sick. Because and this is how my healing work actually started. I ended up doing I had to go EMDR because I said, if I continue to do this, I'm going to get sick.
Absolutely.
Because I was hearing horrific stories for the first time. And I'm guiding people and holding people and helping them. And I said, I can't do this anymore. I need to get help. So I ended up creating an organization that's called Project Light.
Okay.
So Project Light, I actually help people connect to their light. It's because that light is there always. You were born with it. You will never lose it, but it gets covered by the darkness of our trauma. And we can peel that darkness off. I help people through the experiences that I do in Vermont. They're very intense and it's an immersive 4-day experience without telephone. It's like you go into the Matrix. But also, they're expensive, you know? So what I decided to do is I'm bringing it into a leadership summit. So listen to this. I have to call it leadership summits. Because if I call it healing summits, nobody will come.
Wow.
But I'm actually helping.
I'm stunned because, you know, the way it sounds, it's so widespread that why aren't people talking about that? I'm being honest with you. I've never been exposed to it, but I'm sure now that I've talked to people that have, but they're silenced. The silence is deafening, okay, because they don't want to talk about it.
Because it's someone that they love.
Oh, wow.
And someone in the family, they think they're going to break the family. So many of them say, well, I couldn't say anything because if I say that and it breaks the family or if I'm not believed. But now the family is broken because
it's already broken.
It's already broken.
Right,
there is so much damage that it gets done.
Have you looked into Abigaine? You know, have you ever heard of Abigaine? No. It's a plant. I think they get it in Africa. I'm actually taking a guy to Mexico because it's going to be legal in the United States, but it's for trauma patients, PTSD. And it's for people who have habits, either opiate habits. In this case, my friend has an alcohol habit, and we've tried everything, and he's come to the fact that I'm going to give this a try. And I've done a lot of research on it. It's something you may want to look into, and it's something that deals with trauma, and it's really like a psychedelic that you go through a 48-hour psychedelic trip under doctor's supervision and everything. Yeah. There's a bunch of testing that you have to do before, but it has an 80% cure rate, and it has after 100%, and it's something that's it's becoming very, very well known and widespread through the United States, and it's going to be legalized by the Trump administration. It's called Abigaine, and
I'm going to look into it.
Yeah, I think you should, because I think it may be something that it kind of rewires the brain. So that trauma, what you're doing is amazing, by the way, but that trauma, it gets rewired and they come out of it. And a lot of these guys have come back from, battlefields and stuff like that, have done it and been cured, where they've had suicidal tendencies.
I believe in all of that.
Yeah. I'm going to send you some information on it. I'm going to send you a podcast on it. And it's the old governor of Texas and another gentleman are pushing it. There's clinics in Texas, but you have to go to Mexico. Actually, I'm going to Cancun. I'm going to fly with this guy down to Cancun just to do this, because if it works for him, it's an answer for a lot of people I deal with. And, I think it's going to work. All the research I did seems like it's going to work. So I want you to look into it. It may be something that could help these people with this trauma. It kind of rewires the brain to be able to deal with it much better. It does it for, like I said, soldiers coming home from, horrific things. So look into that. And
I will. Brian, I have to stop you for a minute, because I'm sitting here and I'm like, I don't know if you noticed, I have a smirk on my face, and I'm like, you're such a light. You're such a beacon of light. I want to thank you.
I appreciate that.
I want you to sit on that for a minute, because I know I see you, because I see what you do, and you move very fast. You're a fast person, and I'm going to turn this around, okay? I'm turning this around, okay?
I'm not ready for a podcast
yet. I'm going to take a moment, actually, because I see energy in the soul, and the eyes are the door to the soul. And I saw it when I met you, because I've connected to you, and I saw you speak, and then I shook hands with you, and I see you. I want you to know I see you.
I appreciate that.
And I want to thank you for being a beacon of light. That's what I want to create in life. That's the reason I do this work now with Project Light, because if we can have beacons of light like you, I see the lives that you're touching. I see it. And there's so many people that need help. We need more beacons of light like you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll be honest with you. I am moved by somebody greater than me.
I can see that.
So I don't take any credit.
I see that, because I am you. I see.
So I want to talk about, I want to move on from this, and I want to talk about your career, because it's a stellar career. And when did you decide to go into the medical field?
I wanted to be a doctor when I was a little girl.
Okay.
In the Dominican Republic. My family My uncle was a doctor, the one that called me, remember I mentioned.
Right.
Nurses, uncles, it was a family of doctors in the DR. And I couldn't do it. I was married at the age of 17. I was in high school, when I was married. And I ended up getting, as a medical assistant, the closest I could get to a doctor here was I became a medical assistant.
Was that in Westchester?
Yeah.
Okay, where was that? Where'd you start?
It was the Westchester I don't even know. This is so many years ago. I'm 61. So I ended up becoming a medical assistant. And then I ended up working for the Jewish community in Scarsdale.
Okay.
With a very heavy accent. It's like God started. One thing I used to say, I went through so much as a child that I used to always say, I know it's going to be better. Because it can't get worse.
That's right.
I was like, it needs to be better. So when I went to work as a medical assistant at Scarsdale Medical Group, where I lasted 26 years.
Yeah, I see that.
And I ended up being a medical assistant for 2 years, and I was hungry. And I was, I'm like, oh my God, like I have an opportunity. And to me, because I come from nothing, a penny was a penny. Like I did not, I really value money and I value opportunities. So I blossomed. And I talk about it in my book. There's a lot of lessons from that story that I want people, especially a lot of people that have gone through what I've gone through, traumas, everybody,
Right.
Then I shared my whole journey of becoming this woman that hated herself. I hated myself. I hated my body. Hated it. To being a woman that today I'm in love with my soul. I love me. I've fallen in love with me. And when I said that one time in Channel 41, they're like, well, that sounds like conceited. I said, no, honey. To fall in love with you, most people die and they never fall in love with the grace that God created you with.
Absolutely.
So, but when I became a medical assistant, 2 years I was the manager, and I was given the opportunity. I became an executive director 26 years of my life. I did not know that I was going to be this brilliant businesswoman, because I became a brilliant businesswoman that took this business from 5 million to 30 million, little Jackie from the Dominican Republic. From 36 employees to 250, from 10,000 square feet of medical space to 80,000.
Wow.
By the time I left.
So that you move on, I have so many questions for the medical field. It's, I'm very good friends with Dr. Mark Geller, who's the CEO at NIAC, and we have these conversations all the time. And I'm trying to figure out, where does the mission cross over with the profitability of the medical field? The medical field is such in disarray.
Yes.
That I know it's the best around, but it doesn't work as efficiently as it should for everyone. Okay.
I agree.
So I talk to him, and we have these conversations. And Montefiore has a philosophy that they serve everybody. It doesn't matter who walks through the door, they're going to serve everybody. I mean, if it wasn't for their private practices, they'd probably be underwater. So where's the balance? Where can we? I know you serve the underserved communities.
Yeah.
I know you're out there doing it out there face to face with them, out there getting them help, getting them medical help as they need it. Where do we come together and make this work? Because I am totally confused on it. And like I said, I've had this conversation with Mark Geller, who's a very bright guy, by the way. And
I had the pleasure of meeting him.
Right. The philosophy, I'm just trying to make sense of it. Where do we?
It's a full podcast. It's very complex. And I can tell you that because I understood the business of medicine so well, I decided I had a life-altering experience at the age of 50. I almost died. I talk about it in my book. And that's what shifted me to leave my amazing job.
Right.
I mean, I was making $300,000 a year, and they were giving me, they started to give me a percentage of profit.
Wow.
That's how valuable I was to them, and they were to me. So I decided I got it clear. I got a calling that came to me and said, you need to leave. You're going to create a medical center where you're going to give the high quality care, dignified care, culturally sensitive, making sure for my Latino community and the underserved community.
How do you do that?
So I did it
So
11 years ago.
So tell me how that's done, because I am very interested in seeing how you've managed to, take the mission, which is important, and be profitable doing it, because no one else seems to be able to do it.
It was the hardest challenge as a professional woman.
I can only imagine.
Hardest. I was in Scarsdale. These patients,
I know exactly where you
went. There was a
went.
lot of money, and I'm going to serve the underserved community.
Right.
So I believed that I was guided by God. So to me, faith with action equals massive results.
Okay, I'm in agreement with you there.
So I went and I became an expert in mergers and acquisitions at Scarsdale Medical, because we used to be 7 doctors, and I ended up leaving there 50 doctors,
Right.
50 practices. So I ended up going after a physician that was, I mean, it's a long story, it's in the book, but my business partner, I knew for 15 years. When she heard that I was leaving, I gave myself 3 months to have a medical center. Crazy. 3 months later, I was with my business partner.
How do you do it?
She had created a urgent care, and her plan was to create a medical center.
Right.
But she did not know healthcare, and she lost a lot of money. And she said to me, I need you. She ended up knowing my son, and my son ended up connecting us. And I ended up, long story short, I did not think it was there, but when I went to help her, as I was looking for the place, it ended up being my place. That was the place where I needed to be. So Gina happens to be in the wealthy community.
Right.
And Gina she built a beautiful place for the wealthy community in the Ritz-Carlton. It's near the Ritz-Carlton.
In White Plains?
In White Plains.
Yeah, I'm very
so
familiar
when
with
she said to me, I want you to become my partner, I said, I will not come if you don't allow me to just have this mission, because this is what I'm doing. I'm serving the underserved. I am not serving the wealthy community has tons of places to go. The underserved community does not.
All right, so tell me, I am in mad anticipation, how you make this work. How do you make this work?
It took us years, and I can tell you that for 4 years, I did not get paid. 4 years. And I said to Gina, I'm willing to put my house and bring that money here, because I know that with the effort, faith, and action, we will. And we ended up, the pandemic comes, I have thousands of patients now. We are surviving.
So these are all from White Plains, most of them from White Plains?
Actually, from all over, because we created a medical membership for $1 a day, $365 a year. You come in and you have unlimited urgent care. For $2 a day, you see the urgent care plus primary care doctor. There is a program that would work if we're able to come together. I ended up going to Albany and talking about this. And I'm like, give me the money, and I can tell you that I know how to take care of the underserved community.
That is wild. I sat on a board for 19 years over in White Plains called Lifting Up Westchester. It was really Grace Church Community Center. When I got on the board, I served as the head of the board for 3 or 4 years. And they could never figure out. There was a men's shelter, there was a women's shelter, there was a soup kitchen right in, if you know Main Street and Church Street, the church right on the corner. Mm-hmm. That was
I know that church.
That was the now they're right off 287. But I was, like I said, I was on that board for 19 years, and it was a great. It was one of the best men's shelters in the state. It was brand new, state-of-the-art men's shelter, and we had a nice women's shelter. Like I said, a soup kitchen that was feeding thousands of people every single day.
Wow.
Not people that weren't working, just people that weren't making enough money to feed themselves.
Wow.
And it was a great experience. But the medical piece of that, the medical piece they needed, that was always a very difficult hill to climb because we couldn't get them the services they needed, okay?
The irony is, with my experience, so I created this program with my business partner, and think about it. 365 times 5,000 patients, let's say.
Right.
I haven't gotten to that. I have thousands of patients,
right,
but are insured. So I wanted to help the immigrant community,
right,
the uninsured community. So we created this program, but we had to promote it. People did not believe that this
How is it funded?
At the beginning, it was us.
No, I know, but okay, so...
and then we have a lot of the patients ended up being insured patients. So we created, a strong relationship with the insurance companies. It took us time to negotiate with them. I went out there, and got to meet the CEOs and everybody, and I'm like, you want to listen to me. I have this. Gina and I went working day and night to get to the place where we had thousands of insured patients.
Okay, so you have these insured patients that are paying the freight.
And then
the companies are paying the freight. Now, how do you translate that into the patients that don't have the insurance? So the underserved community, the people that can't afford insurance.
So we got them to come to us for $365 a year. $1 a day. And I remember being in front of Albany and they're saying to me, but they're going to abuse the system. And I said, this community has 2 to 3 jobs. The challenge for them is going to the doctor. I wanted to make sure that they come because I did analysis. I'm big into data. Like you want to understand. So my patients will come 2.5 a year.
2.5 times a year. I just to let you know, I have a commercial cleaning company, so I deal with your patients all the time, and it's always a challenge for them. But these are the hardest working people. I just want to tell a real quick story here. During COVID, I do a lot of work for hospitals. I do work for Nyack Montefiore, Valley Hospital, Greenwich Hospital, a lot of hospitals in the area. My people, during the entire time of COVID, never missed a day of work. Never one day of work. I was backfilling, this is no lie, hospitals with my people because their people would not go to work. One person did not go to work. He went to I'm not going to mention the hospital, he went to the hospital, and the only reason he didn't get into the hospital is because they tested you every morning, and he had COVID, and they wouldn't let him in. And he calls me. This is the God's honest truth. He calls me, Mr. Heyman, I can't go to work today. I said, why not? He goes, I don't know. They tested me. They said I have COVID. I said, what? You have COVID? You can't go into the hospital. I said, don't worry about it. I'm going to pay you anyway. Don't worry about it. I said, you're going to stay out for, I think at the time it was like 14 days. I said, don't worry about it. Just go home. He goes, I really don't want to go. I said, go home. Yeah. I said, I will take care of you. I will pay you. And, my people have worked for me for years and years and years. I mean, in a business that has a lot of turnover, we have no turnover.
That's
because,
because you're the beacon of light.
They'll come, when they need something, they come to me and they get it, and they know that. And but that story I tell to everybody. I tell to all the hospitals because we were backfilling. I'm going to just tell you, we were backfilling 3 major hospitals in the area with our people, because they were the only ones willing to go to work in that kind of environment. Remember, the hospitals were unbelievably hot places. But these people didn't go to work because they went to work because they had to go to work. That's how they paid their bills. So, when you tell me for $365 a year and you figured out, you did the data, then it works, if that works.
Brian, I didn't even stop there because, you see, I went to Quest Diagnostic and I negotiated 80% discount for my patients. I went to the pharmacy next door. I said, I'm going to send you all my insured patients, but you're going to take care of my uninsured patients. I went to an ophthalmologist that was a kind soul, and I said to him, how much can you charge? And I know that, you see, if they charge Medicare rates, Medicare is actually a reasonable fee. But you know what other places do? they charge 300 to 400 to 600% of what Medicare
I know.
to the patients. So I negotiated with so many specialists because now, I'm known in the community.
Well, you were sending them your patients, insurance
I'll send you
patients?
my insured patients, and you're going to help me with an uninsured. I had MRIs getting it done. If you went to the hospital, close to $3,000, $300.
Wow. You see, there is answers to
there
this.
is.
So what you're telling me, there's enough. If I was to take this on a macro level now, okay, I'm going to say New York, a macro level in New York. What you're telling me, there's enough patients in New York that pay these prices with insurance companies. Like I have insurance, and I don't get a bill. Actually, it's my wife's insurance. She works for the school district, so
that's a good,
very good insurance. But anyway, I don't pay a bill, and I've had a lot of stuff done to me, including cancer. But I've never gotten a bill. But because there's enough of us out there working and have these insurance that you could cut deals to make it worth people's while to treat people who don't have insurance or give them a lesser rate. Are you saying that's a possibility?
Look, the system that I described to you.
Yeah.
The patients are afraid. These patients, especially immigrants, they're afraid to go to the doctor because of the bill. They are afraid. They don't speak the language. They're afraid because they're just.
Yeah, I know.
Even their.
I
so
get,
when the
I
patients,
deal with them every day.
Yeah. So when I create an environment where they are comfortable coming to us,
right,
they can come to the urgent care. I can tell you, I have the lowest rate of patients going to the emergency room because I have an urgent care. So they don't need to go to the emergency room. They also get their physicals. Right now I have AI helping me, believe it or not, with calling all the patients I used to have in Honduras, I still do. In Honduras, I had a call center that will call you if you need your colonoscopy, your mammogram, your physical, all of it. I was proactively calling you. You need to come. I need you
preventive
here.
medicine.
I was in Facebook. I was sending the messages. And guess what? My patient population at Formé is a healthier population.
Absolutely.
So they're not going to go and get in the hospital. We're going to prevent.
They don't need to go to the emergency room.
When I was in Albany, this is what I was saying. Like, you support me, I can tell you.
You convinced them of this.
Well, it's government. It's a long story.
It's such a dynamic way of thinking that we can actually do this. But what you're talking about is preventive medicine. If they go for their colonoscopies, if they go for their testing, there's less likely they'll wait because they're afraid and end up in an emergency room because
Make sure you come for your hemoglobin A1C. I can tell you, my patients who has not come for the hemoglobin A1C and they get a call. I'm preventing the BMI. Okay, we need to work with your weight.
Right.
We need to understand what's going on. So, and then what Gina and I ended up doing, we have internal medicine, gynecology, neurology, podiatry, gastroenterology.
Where is this located in White Plains?
It's in 7-11 South Broadway, White Plains, New York.
Yep. Wow.
And during the pandemic, I can tell you, we ended up
there's a lot of people that don't know about you.
Yeah.
That I would love to. We're going to put the links on the podcast and everything, but these are conversations I have all the time, believe it or not, about how do we get these people the medicine they need. And you've developed a way to, with the numbers, statistics, that you could have enough people paying with their insurance that if you use the same physicians and practitioners, that they have to accept that and therefore do it at a lower rate.
Yeah. Charge the patient's Medicare rate and you'll be fine. Even the hospital, because the hospital, it's the system. I understand the system very well because I've been living in it most of my life. I mean, I was 22 when I started as a medical assistant, and I'm going to be 62. So, and I understand the business of it. And I also understand the culture. And I understand the underserved community. And when they come to my place, I can tell you that in our place, they feel the energy of love. We are love, kindness, and respect. and they feel it. And I can tell you that our patients are healthier because our staff feels the love, kindness, and respect. Those are our core values, and so do the patients.
So do you think this can be translated to a macro level of a countrywide? Do you think that this method of serving this population, you know, in every city? I mean, White Plains is one small city, but I mean, we have, you know, huge cities that, do you think that those numbers could work all the way through the system?
100%.
Wow.
100%.
Wow.
And you can do the numbers. Even when I was in Albany, I said, look at the numbers. 5,000 patients, 300, you have millions of dollars.
And what you did is the math, say, listen, on an average, they're going to come 2.5 times a year.
Right. What is that costing you? It's not. And the like I said, the advantage is then you have all these other providers that are with you with the program. I give them a card. It's the Formé membership.
Okay.
And when they go to even dentists, when they go to the dentist, I negotiated with all these doctors.
So you went around personally and negotiated with all these doctors?
With everybody. Hospitals. I went to imaging centers. Mammograms were $100.
So they were willing to deal, they were willing to negotiate with you?
Yeah, because I would say, look, I know what you're being paid. Because I know what Medicare pays.
Right, no, I know, you know that. Right.
So just charge them whatever Medicare is paying.
And they were willing to do that?
Yes.
As long as you sent them your regular patients?
No, not many of them. Okay. I just did it because I want to work with them, obviously. But I can tell you that the key thing was there's no billing. There was no billing anybody. The patients, we would tell them, you're going to have your mammogram. It's $100. You need to bring the $100 that day.
Wow. Okay, so
there's no billing.
So that would motivate people.
Yeah. You're getting the cash.
Just not only that, you're losing the overhead of billing.
Yeah.
Which is a very expensive
Believe me, I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that community, you said, okay, if you're going to go for this test, this is going to cost you $125. Make sure you have a check or money order or cash to pay them. And that,
no surprises.
So that's what motivated them, because they were getting paid directly, quickly, even less than they would probably have to struggle to get their money out of somebody else. And we know what that's all about. So what you really do is just putting them on a fast track to collect cash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So why don't more people do it?
There's a resistance to being curious. We started with curiosity. It's like, oh no, how does that gonna work? Oh no,
Are they putting their heads in the sand? Do they don't think it exists?
I have to tell you that there's a lot of issues with the medical system. There's a lot of lobbyists, insurance company.
Yeah, that's
you're getting,
So you're fighting that battle too.
Yeah, I've spoken, I was in Montefiore a while ago talking about the medical membership in the underserved community. Because one thing, and I know that our patients are healthier because we understand them culturally. Like we are not, and one thing I said, look, I hear complaints about our community and that they're not healthy and they're ruining, the healthcare system and And I said, why don't we stop complaining and stop educating them? They don't even know. Most people come from another country. We don't do colonoscopy. We're starting to in the Dominican Republic. Colonoscopy at the age of 45. Who the heck? That doesn't exist.
What about diet? Is diet a big thing? Is diabetes a big?
And you know what? In some of the countries, it's not because we eat outside.
But in this country,
in this country, diabetes is a major issue.
Okay.
But if you now have immigrants and you say, look, for $2 a day, $730 a year, you can come in, you see the doctor every 3 months for your diabetes.
Right.
And we make sure now I have Quest, it's charging you $7 for the hemoglobin A1C.
Wow.
And now I have the pharmacy that's getting your medication for $35, $40 a month. It becomes affordable.
Okay. All right. So you're able to, put a halt to that, to a whole community, because they were able to get the Medicare. Wow.
It's getting it out there. The biggest challenge we have is really promotion in getting it out there with the medical membership.
To the community.
To the community. It required a lot.
Do you send spokespeople out to the community?
So when I started this, I was working endlessly.
Right.
And I ended up in probably less than a year having 1,200 members, which was
wow.
good. But to get those 1,200 members, it took a lot.
I think it probably they were afraid to a certain extent for anybody in the environment.
People didn't know, and this is one thing that I was asking government. I said, look, give us the budget to be able at least to promote. But we were a for-profit business with a non-profit budget.
Right.
So it's like, I said, I'm not making any money. But if you give us the money, I can promote this. Look, we have 1,200, but it was really hard to get. We ended up, during the pandemic,
even after you presented the numbers to them, they were reluctant to support it?
They were going to, and then budget comes, and that's a whole another story.
I know. I happen to be in some of those meetings, and only
painful
by mistake. It is very painful, and it's something that this country really has to figure out. Because it's not going in the right direction, and some major hospitals are feeling. I mean, they're closing hospitals upstate New York. They're closing them in different places that serve the community, and some people are traveling well over an hour to get to a hospital or to get their medical care. Because they just can't survive anymore.
I know. You got me excited about this again.
I am telling you.
I have been.
I am telling you, I've had this conversation so many times because, I want to see everybody. I believe it's right. All right, that's my belief. It's my personal belief that everybody has a right to medical coverage.
We need to keep people healthier.
Right.
And in order for them to be healthier, they need to have access to care.
And they need to be educated.
Yeah.
Okay, education is the key is the equalizer in my mind to everything. There's a school I work with, San Miguel's. It's another podcast of mine. You should, Father Mark does it. And it's a very special place. But it takes the most vulnerable kids in Newburgh, which has one of the highest murder per capita in the country, and these kids would have been on the street. The most vulnerable kids, the kids that are at most risk, brings them into a school, puts them in a uniform, no phone, everybody speaks English. These kids are going to, and they follow them from first grade through college.
Wow.
And they go to Ivy League schools. These are kids that would be on the street in Newburgh. They end up going to they go to private high schools, and they go to Ivy League schools. I just went to a thing over with Trump came into Rockland, and the Father Mark happened to be there, but he happened to be there with one of his students. And this kid was home from Annapolis. I don't know if you know Annapolis. It's the Naval Academy. Wow. Here's a kid that would have been just another kid on the street in full uniform. And I had front row there, and Trump's walking by, and I'm just pointing at this kid because I wanted him to come over just to say hi to this kid. Young, fresh face that had his whole life ahead of him, that was going to do nothing but good things. And this place, San Miguel Academy in Newburgh, changed this kid's life. And what I'm saying is that education is the equalizer. If you educate people, and they will, they'll lift themselves up. I mean, it's only natural.
Yeah.
I mean, you're lucky enough to have the energy to educate yourself and work through this, and this is an experience for you. You learn things on the run. I could see that. Yeah. But if we
and I continue to learn.
No, absolutely.
I'm obsessed with
learning. Never stops. It never stops.
My kids are like, Mom, you are like in your 60s. How is it like you know more? Like
we should put them together. We should put them together because I'm constantly reading books, and I said you got to read this book. You got to. But
we'll exchange books.
Absolutely,
I love that.
But the idea is that it's if we can educate this community about what they need to do for their own health, it saves everybody in the long run. And I
agree with you.
I just really want to thank you for doing this, because this has been a pleasure, and I hope we could do part 2 sometime, because I know I have a lot more to talk to you about. I know, it's just an amazing thing that we actually met by, coincidence in a business meeting. But when you stood up and you spoke, I said, everybody at the table, by the way, said, they all just stopped and they looked at me. And I said, yeah, I'm going to go up and talk to her, right? But I am so happy that you did this, and I'm so thankful that you did it. And I want to learn more about it, and we want to put all your social media on the thing. Is there a place where we can find you on social media?
So on social media, I'm very focused on the Latino community.
Right.
So on Instagram is Maria_Trusa.
Okay.
I was taken out of Facebook and Instagram because of, that's another thing I forgot to tell you, because of my message about sexual abuse. They closed me.
Yeah, I know. That's a whole, we could talk about hours about how that works, because anything offensive that they think is offensive, they shut it down.
I did an Ironman, and I had a picture of myself that said, instead of wearing like what I wore for the Ironman, it said, I'm a survivor of sexual abuse at the age of 9, and I say no more. And I posted that picture of me finishing, and that took me down. I
would love to see that. Send that to us, because we'd love to put that onto the podcast.
I'll send you the video. My son actually, I'm a limitless woman, so I started doing things that I didn't know how to swim, and I did an Ironman.
Wow.
I did not have cycle, and I don't
think I'd drown on doing that. I'm a terrible swimmer.
Oh, I did not know how to swim, period. So
that's the only part I'm afraid of, by the way.
I actually love swimming now.
Soon as they put me in the water, I would have been, okay, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's definitely a challenge. But, I will definitely, so when it comes to LinkedIn, I have Maria Trusa LinkedIn, and I'll give you all of the information. But I also have my website, is mariatrusa.org.
Okay.
It's in Spanish and English. And I have a podcast mainly in Spanish. It's in Spotify. But it's my podcast, so it's a continuation of my book, basically. I've been doing reflections, and I've been sharing the reflections on Spotify of my life, what I'm going through, because as you could tell, I'm very authentic, I'm very vulnerable. I tell you, when you look at my social media, even in LinkedIn, I actually post the good, the bad, and the ugly.